So you're a young Canadian, your country is overrun by foreigners, either crowding you out of a university or crowding down wages through competition or just getting in front of you in line at the hospital or shouting pro-Hamas threats in the street, and you can't afford a house and your prime minister calls you names if you complain. Why wouldn't you make a new life in the land of opportunity? There's a reason why the phrase the American dream is famous. You don't really hear the Canadian dream that often, certainly not under Trudeau, do you? So when Trump says, hey, Canadians, join us, a real young person just might. So let's look at this poll. I just want to focus on one of the various questions. And you can see it here. They ask a lot of questions, but my favorite is, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? If the United States offered all Canadians a full U.S. citizenship and a full conversion of the Canadian dollar and all personal assets into U.S. dollars, I would vote for Canada to become part of the United States. Agree or disagree? So this particular table shows the answers by different demographic groups, and they combine strongly agree, and they combine strongly disagree and disagree. So 30% of Canadians say yes to that proposition, that they would take up Trump on his offer of becoming an American citizen and converting their dollars at par. So 30% say yes, 70% say no. But that's of the whole population. And again, that's a very high number, by the way. And this is without any campaign, just after a couple of weeks of banter. But let's drill down for a moment. In British Columbia, you can see here broken down by location, 33% say yes. That's combining strong agree and agree. In Alberta, surprisingly, it's a little bit lower, 29%. In Quebec, it's 26%, which is interesting. I wonder how many Quebecers who want independence would be satisfied with joining America instead of being fully independent. And incredibly, the biggest number, is this a surprise? The biggest number who say yes is Ontario, 34%. That's more than Alberta or Quebec. Now, there's a margin of error here, but still, that's very interesting, isn't it? In what was supposed to be the economic powerhouse of Canada, that's where the most people want to join the States. If you look, the answer is pretty steady no matter the income level. So rich or poor, everyone thinks that's a good deal. Here's that same question now broken down by sex, age, and education. Again, the national average is 30%. Now that rises to 38% for men. I think that's because in many cases, men are the breadwinners. I think men are the ones who are thinking about prosperity and a future. Imagine if someone said to you that they would give you $1 US for every $1 Canadian you have in the bank, and you don't have to listen to that clown Trudeau or his successor carbon tax Carney anymore. That's a huge number of young people that would say yes to that deal. Like if someone walked into your room right now and said, give me all your Canadian dollars, I'll give you American dollars 1 for 1, and I'll give you citizenship in America. Huge numbers of young people would say yes. You can see 43% of 18 to 34-year-olds. Well, what are 18 to 34-year-olds? They're done high school, maybe they're going to college, but they're starting their life. They're looking to get married. They're looking to get a job. They're looking to buy a house. That's how you start life. You're starting families. You're paying the bills. They're the people Trudeau has hit the hardest. They're the people who want this American deal the most. You can see seniors, by contrast. Only 17% want to join the U.S. Fair enough. They've put the most into Canada, and Canada has put the most into them. They've probably paid off their mortgages. They probably don't have to work for a living anymore, so they don't have those same stresses. And by the way, they're patriotic because they grew up in a time when patriotism was still a thing. Look at by education. Not a lot of difference, but people without high school, which could be tradespeople, they're the most eager to have a crack at being American, maybe because it's the easiest to get ahead there if you're working class. And look at that last category, generation. Gen Z, 48% want to join the U.S., 48%. Now, if this were broken down by sex and age, if we knew the number for Gen Z males, I think it would be a majority. In fact, what I did is, in my own math, I transposed the difference between men and women onto that Gen Z number. And by my calculations, a Generation Z male, 61% likely to say yes to the deal. And all I did there was I took the Gen Z number for both genders, and then I unpacked it using the earlier stat of the difference between men and women. 61% of Generation Z males would join the states. That's the Joe Rogan generation. That's the Jordan Peterson generation. Those are people who are impatient with wokeness and want to have a prosperous life. Imagine how broken Canada has to be when just a few tweets by Trump is enough to make more than half of young men say, sure, we're ready to join. That sounds like a good deal. And imagine how tone-deaf Trudeau and the rest of the regime have to be to say, in response to Trump, we're going to punish Canadians by attacking the oil patch, aka young men working for a living, and generally escalating the trade war. Instead of just doing what Trump asked, to seal our border against illegal migrants and illegal drugs. Oh, by the way, remember this? In the United States, it's illegal for states to break away. You might remember they had a whole terrible civil war about that. In Canada, it's completely legal. There's a law called the Clarity Act. It was already ruled on by the Supreme Court. It's legal. They have step-by-step how you do it. The Supreme Court says as long as there is a clear question in a referendum, the province can separate. You might recall that Quebec came within 0.5% of separating, and that was a generation ago. I predict that within 1 year, the Panama Canal will return to the sovereignty of the United States. That's not that hard to imagine. Jimmy Carter should never have sold it to Panama for $1 a generation ago, but that wasn't even that long ago. I think that's going to happen pretty quickly. I think that Greenland will not join the U.S. as a state. It's too small. I don't think it'll join even like a territory like Puerto Rico or Guam. But I think it'll do something like maybe sign a 100-year trade and military agreement with the United States that makes it a de facto American turf. It'll still call itself Greenland and have some local independence, but I think it's basically going to hook up with America, and they're going to get rich off it, and they're going to feel more important than Denmark seems to be treating them. And well, what's left? Well, there's Canada. Where will we be in a few years? Well, the jury is out. I think if someone who loved Canada and wanted to restore it to a status of pride and strength and prosperity were to become prime minister and made a compelling case for Canada, I think such a person could win back the 48% of Generation Z that wants to quit. I think so. But if Trudeau is replaced by a droning World Economic Forum oligarch like Mark Carney or Chrystia Freeland, more of the same, with an added war on Alberta oil and the jobs that come with it, don't be surprised if one day there actually is a separation referendum in Alberta. And don't be shocked if it passes.